And we're live? Yeah. Um, Hello everyone. I'm Nick. If you remember 2 weeks ago, we had an Ink and Well. Then I had my co-host, Eddie. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it and we couldn't have a special guest on in order to fill his place. So it's just me tonight. However, don't worry, it's still going to be the full hour. We're still going to do some writing. I just realized I am streaming Discord right now. I'm so smooth. This is very strange being by myself, but we're gonna make this work. Anyways, so today, for the Ink and Well, we're gonna do some writing. We're gonna start off with this little story that I have. I've called it Refugees. The inspiration for this was the refugees leaving the original city of Celeria, which, as we learned on the Friday stream, was ravaged in the war between Uthran and Celeria. So I kind of got inspired to write about the aftermath or middle math, if you will, of that battle. And so I wanted to kind of express some of those consequences of war that we don't usually see in a D&D session. You know, we hear about wars, we hear about people dying, but we don't usually see the refugees. That's not something that Dungeons and Dragons really worries about, which is fine. It's a game, it's for entertainment. But I was curious about that, so I thought it'd be fun to write a story and maybe guess about what maybe happened. So as you can see on the screen, I've got two documents open. On the left is the third draft. It's been through a few drafts. I revise a lot. This is 1,000 words, which is probably about 10 minutes reading time out loud. And I've spent several hours drafting this, revising this. It's just the way I work writing. Some people revise more than others. I typically revise a lot. Working on a little sonnet for poetry, I probably spent a solid 20 hours on just 14 lines. So, yeah, it's just the way I write. And honestly, I think it's a better way of writing. I think the vomit draft isn't really the fun part. The really fun part is revising it and getting it down to a coherent, little more eloquent story. So I'm going to start reading this a little bit to get us into the motions, get us into the setting of this story. And I'll explain this highlighting and this cross out, this strike through, once I'm done reading this first two paragraphs here. There's no way to tell what time it is. The most the heavens will give is lightning flickering and grumbling behind silhouettes afar. More signs come from a city, miles away. Columns of smoke feed into the overcast. A red aura radiates from the city, a smoky haze reaching out from it. Raised homes and shops haunt within the haze, and crumbling city walls loom behind those ruins. A tower within those city walls, 20 floors tall, and topped with more towers, crumbles, and the tremble reaches the outskirts and uprooted farmlands. The road to the hinterlands is guided by lanterns, torches, and candles held by those upon it. A few people have packs as well, but most have nothing more than the clothes on their backs. Some do not even have all of their clothing. Part of it is wrapped around their arms or waists or legs. Some have it wrapped around nubs of former limbs. Most people walk, but there are some people in the back of a farm wagon. Its wood has left drips along its path. A single driver directs 2 oxen, and most of the people aboard are maimed. They stare at each other, flinching as the wheels crack against bumps. Some of the occupants, despite the bumps, get some shut-eye. So that's the first 2 paragraphs of the third draft, and as you can tell, it's a pretty bleak scene. Yeah, I don't really think I can make this a joyous scene. A city is literally being destroyed, and I'm kind of, the way I'm going about it is there's a method, and I can't remember the name, but you kind of start wide and then you go smaller, more specifically to your subject. So I haven't even quite gotten to my subject of the story yet, but I'm still setting the scene. So this beginning here, I'm describing, the city, the kind of this general sense of what's happening. You can tell that, with this, the tower falling, would be the citadel falling. That kind of sets the scene where, all right, well, something terrible has happened in the city. I think the red aura implying fire. I'm trying not to say that there's fire. It's a bit, I don't want to be too pretentious with my writing, but it kind of happens, I think, sometimes. I read myself and then I'm like, that's a little pretentious, Nick. But I write what I think I would enjoy. So, yeah, a red aura radiating from the city, a smoky haze reaching out from it. I'm trying to just convey that there's a fire, convey that the city is in trouble without actually saying, the city is in trouble. I mean, really, these two paragraphs, I could say, this one could be simplified to the city is on fire. And then this paragraph could be simplified to people are leaving the city, But, and, maybe actually that might be a good idea to just forego both of these paragraphs. But I'm going to indulge myself a little bit and use the whole paragraphs to describe this scene. And hopefully that enriches the story a little bit more. It gives more context to these people walking along the road. And I say the road to the hinterlands because that's where they're going. Obviously, it's the road to the city. Hopefully that's not confusing. And yeah, so here I'm getting to my subjects. And one thing I highlighted here because I'm not sure if I like this phrasing, in particular here. One, I find it a bit cliche. Like I'm trying to avoid the "it is a dark, stormy night," because obviously that's cliche, and a lot of people will tune out if you say that. At the same time, I maybe I'll remove the lightning flickering. I'll have to consider that. Maybe I'll mark this red to look at it a little later and consider that. I don't want to think too much while on stream, or else you guys might get bored. I want to keep on thinking. I'm gonna try and not stay in the same spot, but I'm gonna at least go through my thought processes. And the one thing with this sentence that I will say about it, that's nice about it, is a mildly cliche, but it does, transitions into this next sentence. It allows me to focus on the city rather than necessarily worrying about the time of day. But I could equally probably just eliminate these 3 sentences here. That might actually be a good idea. I'm kind of liking this idea and simplifying it because I do really like this first sentence, but really it might not be necessary, or I could even eliminate these 2 sentences and then just go into the columns of smoke feed into the overcast. So I'm going to sit on that for a moment. Later in this, I'm kind of content with the way this is phrased. It is a bit confusing, I feel like. Let me just, can I? Trying to see if I, yeah. Anyways, so it's a bit confusing. Red aura radiates from the city. Smoky haze reaching out from it. That's fine. Raised homes and shops haunt the haze, and that I don't quite like. It's a bit confusing, but yeah. A tower within those city walls. 20. Oh, that should be wall. Walls, rather, plural. 20 stories tall on top with more towers here. I'm also, describing how tall that tower is. I think that's fine. You know, a tower. I really like that detail. A tower topped with more towers. You know, kind of imagining those. You know, you usually will have a main keep, and then maybe you'll have the towers on the corners. I really like that idea of describing it like that. It's so, it's so weird. I like that idea. I really shouldn't say that about things that I've written. It just sounds narcissistic, but I'll try and avoid that. All right, but so here we're getting to the road to the hinterlands, and here we're describing the people on it, the refugees, really, and that's the perspective of refugees that I want to focus on. You know, we have it lit by the lantern torches and candle held by those upon it. I'm liking that. Here, I'm not going to keep this part about the farm wagon. It's a nice detail, but really it doesn't serve me any purpose other than providing more gore, providing more problems. I think this sentence here conveys completely what these 5 senses do. So I'm not even gonna leave it there. I'm gonna delete it, and then I'm gonna keep typing. So the way I usually will revise is I'll have documents next to each other like this, and I will it is a very gloomy and dark scene, but you know, but what I'll do is I'll have on the left the draft that I'm working on, and on the right, on the right, I'll have the draft I'm working on, and on the left is the draft before it, and I'll keep on working on it. So I'll literally type it out, and then as I'm typing it, reading it, I will edit it. So, some have wrapped around once were arms or legs. So save for thunder and shuffling gravel. Trying to use sound, trying to use more than just visuals. The road is silent. People have gathered in their own groups, and they do not mingle among others. A mother, and here now as I said, I'm like bringing it more to the focus, and this is going to be the main focus here. These specific people I'm about to describe of them on the road. So a mother leads, if I could spell that right, her 3 children on. Mother leads her 3 children. I don't even have to say on the road. One of them, a young boy about 3 feet tall, grips the head of a former teddy bear and the hand of his sister. She is 4 feet tall, and her pink, I'll call it shawl for her, has been muted with dirt. The eldest, a lean, 6 foot tall boy, carries a large pack on his back full of whatever valuables they had time to grab. This means clothing, potatoes, and onions. Obviously, with that description, I say valuables, and really what I mean is the valuables, what they find valuable. And, normally we hear valuables, maybe we think jewelry, we think Chinaware or something like that. And, I've then kind of flipped it with clothing, potatoes, and onions. Hopefully that conveys how these are not rich people. These are not, people who had it good before or after the war. Or maybe as the result of the war, they, lost all their jewelry and things. Although gold really isn't, I'm not really sure. But yeah, it at least conveys their current situation. Hopefully it conveys their current situation. That, they are not rich, and what they value is food and clothes. And even clothes might be a bit rich for the people along this path. But anyways, so his mother also carries a pack along with a candlestick. She holds it angled. No, I don't really need and there. So the wax, she holds it angled. The wax drips to the ground, usually. Some of it spits onto her hand, where she allows it to cool on calluses. She wears a shawl. I'll use shawl. I was debating of using the word headscarf and changing it up. Maybe I'll use that later, but I think to keep the similarity, I don't, I try and use different words all the time. Obviously try not to use, last week we talked about purple fiction, or last week, 2 weeks ago we talked about purple fiction. I tried, I don't want to do that crazy, but I still try and use different words to try and make the story still feel a little bit more alive. It's just, it feels more unique. It feels more, I prefer using a lot more varied diction. That sounds, it's funny saying that, varied diction, but yeah, so I try and use different words. Here, sometimes I'll use the same words if I want to link to things, right? And so even though it's two different people, they can both be wearing a shawl. So he wears a shawl like her daughter, though hers is gray. All right. So that's going to be the first subjects. We'll say the first characters in this story. And then we're going to go to the next group of characters. And between these two groups of characters is really where this conflict is going to happen. Because up until this point, I mean, there's obviously a conflict in the city. Obviously, there's the conflict of survival. But it's not really, it doesn't feel imminent. They're just kind of walking away. So what I want to do is also add a little more liveliness to that, or a little more conflict, in particular between the refugees just trying to leave the war, and then to give a little bit of foreboding here, the people who wants to initiate the war, the people who are fighting in the war, and the conflict between those two groups. So yeah, a knight leads a group of nearly 50 soldiers towards the city. His armor is full plate, etched with dense and marred matte black. Actually, maybe I'll just say marred black, like the inside of a chimney, like inside a chimney, I think is better phrasing. His helmet, a round and hollow hunk of steel. I don't really need to describe that. His helmet, I feel like saying a round and hollow hunk of steel, that's describing it a lot more than what's necessary. I could probably just say, his helmet, his steel helmet only offers a thin slit is that word I wanted to use there, to look through, and therefore his face is concealed. A sword hangs on his right side, and a buckler is gripped in his left hand. I don't know how many people know what a buckler is, but I'm just looking through the thing. Thank you, Serious Whimsy, for subscribing at tier 1. I'm told I need to thank people for subscribing, so thank you, Serious Whimsy. Very appreciative. Anyways, what I was saying, a buckler, in case if you don't know, it's like a small shield that they used to use way back when, and I feel like quite often we imagine people with very large shields. I like to switch it up sometimes. These small shields, you'll even see there's I think it's there's a show where they have like people dress up as knights and then they fight, and this is like their hobby, just like in a ring of or in like a wooden ring or whatever. They wear this full metal armor and they go at each other, like medieval fighting. It's absolutely fantastic, and you'll even see on that. I forget exactly what the name of the show is, but I know I think it's on history. But anyways, you'll even see on that though that they'll use these bucklers, and it's like this small shield. I mean, it's probably there to there. It's really not large, circular, and it's got a big bulge in the center of it. That's what a buckler is, if you didn't know. I will say, side note, inspiration-wise, I try and I like being realistic in my stories, even in a fantasy story, which is what this is. I enjoy the idea of being more realistic. I think it can help bring people more into the story. I think really as long as you're consistent, right? As long as you're not changing the rules as you go, you can do that. People have done that and made very wonderful stories, but it's more difficult to do that. But so I love getting inspiration from, those shows where they show the armor and how they would fight. I like listening to YouTube videos of hearing about different styles and things of fighting. It's really difficult to describe combat, but what I sometimes will try and do is, I think it's Lindy Beige is a guy on YouTube, and then Modern History TV, both of them. They've actually described how they used to fight back in medieval times. And it's really fascinating hearing them talk about how spears were used or swords were used. Fighting on horseback, how to fight someone on horseback if you're on your feet. And this is just an aside, it's really not relevant to the story, but that is something I find fascinating and I try and take inspiration from. While I was on the topic of, inspiration. Anyways, so his left hand, at his side, one of the dangers of typing this out is that I quite often will add errors. So you need to be sure to go back through it and fix those errors. So at his side, like a panting dog, a man in chainmail and a helm. See here, the LibreOffice, when I'm using, doesn't have a large dictionary. So I have to add things like chainmail. And a helm carries a backpack. Let me read that through again. At his side, like a panting dog, a man in chainmail and a helm. Man in chainmail and a helm carries a backpack. I don't know if I like this and a helm. Just sounds clumsy. Thank you, Curls. I try. I mean, I love it when other people say I'm a good writer. It's really stupid to call yourself a good writer because maybe only you enjoy your own writing. But thank you. But yeah, and a helm. I don't know, chat, if you think and a helm is clumsy or not. I find it clumsy. But, and a man in a chainmail. Man in chainmail carries a backpack. A man in chainmail and a helm carries a backpack. I'm not sure, for now, I'm gonna leave it crossed out. I'll see. Right now, this is actually quite messy. This is a lot more messy than what I'm used to, but I'll have to go back and make a decision on that. As I said earlier, I'm gonna try not to. If I'm writing by myself, I will just sit. I'll just sit and stare at the things and think about it. But here I am really just. I'm going to try and not linger on things. Though I am going to enjoy my coffee. I have to reply here to the DM. He was making sure that I thanked Serious Whimsy for that subscription, and I did. It's so weird streaming. I'm not going to lie. It felt a lot more... natural with Eddie here, someone to bounce off of, but we're making this work. I was telling Anthony before this, I hope this is, if I even capture like a quarter of the energy of Bob Ross, which really I'm not capturing his energy, but like that I was thinking, Bob Ross by himself in a studio, painting something. Very similar idea. Hopefully, this is, you know, a little bit similar. I don't know if this is gonna go full Bob Ross, but hopefully I capture a little bit of that energy. Um, uh, so he's carrying a backpack, and where were we? Where was that? I've lost my spot on this left side. So pink shell. Oh, okay, here we are. Left hand, painting dog, carries a backpack. So I think I described him like a squire, but I'm going to actually now call him the knight's squire. Also carries a sword and a square shield. Those behind are not as well equipped. None of them have plate armor, and only a few wear helmets. Some of the chainmail is baggy, like wearing a blanket. Larger individuals have opted to not wear the armor. Most of the chainmail has holes in it, split rings, and colored crimson. A donkey, I'm not even going to say colored crimson. I'm going to actually just say bloodied. I feel like it's, people wanted to be creative. They didn't want to say that something was bloodied, and they would just say it was colored crimson. And now I feel like that they're both a little cliche, but I'm going to... Torn between two cliches. I'm going to pick the more direct one. A donkey. Not sure if that's actually cliche, but it feels like it is. So a donkey, guided by a soldier, pulls a wheeled wagon full of chainmail and spears and swords. I haven't exactly described what they're doing, but I hope that this does convey what is happening here. It's a little dark for Bob Ross. Yeah, it's very dark for Bob Ross. I think he's done a few winter ones that were dark, but yeah. So Donkey Guy was. So what I was trying to do here, describe this group, and these two groups are going to have a conflict with each other. Not necessarily conflict in terms of combat, but they're going to meet, and so I felt the need to describe both of them, and then now when they come together, we have these two kind of known forces, and hopefully that builds some tension describing them before they actually meet. The other thing, just as a note, what I'm trying to do here is using contrast to help describe the scene more, so you can tell how the knight, sure, his armor is etched with dents and marred black, like inside a chimney, but he is fully equipped, and plate armor is very expensive. Even the rules of D&D convey that like plate armor is most people don't have plate armor, and so there's really that contrast between him with this full plate armor, not exactly a knight in shining armor, but a knight with a squire. A squire is also relatively well equipped compared to the people behind him, who this chainmail is clearly secondhand, to be kind to what we're gonna to how we described the chainmail. And then I hope you can tell that they're recruiting people, because the chainmail does not fit, because 40 minutes, as I've only been talking for half an hour. Only been half an hour, I think. We had the pre-live, and that's why it's been 40 minutes. But, and, as pointed out, 30 minutes, this is 30 minutes, probably, how many words is this right now? 500 words? We're really, how many words is this then? Tool, words count. So, I'm actually about halfway through, more like a third through, but, yeah, it's revising takes a long time. Yeah, but it is only it has been 30 minutes already. So wagon full of chainmail, spears, and swords. All right. I forget what I was saying before. The other benefit of having a co-host, they can remind me what I was saying. But anyways, we shall continue. As they march in mismatched step down. Why does this have a little squiggly? Oh, that's right. Yeah, no, I don't care. Mismatched step. Maybe it's confused by that. I don't, because normally they. Oh, I wonder. Lockstep, or even I could go to the Merriam-Webster that I brought up for the specific purpose. Go to marching and step by the present standard minimizes individuality. So maybe not mismatch step. They march in unlocked step, perhaps. Probably unlocked step might be a little more, because then I'm using this word here, kind of making reference to that. Obviously, it wouldn't be one word. Yes, we'll do this. As a march and unlocked step down the road to glory. I feel like that's a bit on the nose. And I'm kind of ironically saying that from their perspective. I don't know if I like that. It's very on the nose. They invite others to join them. Yeah, this whole line here is quite ironic. Down the road to glory. I really don't like that. Others to join them. So what I'll do, I actually don't want to highlight this. I think the word that I can change here is glory, eventually. Or even what I could say, as they march down the road, as they march an unlocked step down the road, they invite others to join them. They invite others to join them. Maybe I should say others. I know it says passive voice, but whatever. Others are invited to join them. Some people say to not use passive voice. That's what I'm going to do right now. Others are invited to join them. All right. You. Yes. You 6. By decree of the crown. That's not how I think she talks. Those of 16 to 50 years of age must take up arms against the enemy. Now, I don't know if you guys can see where this is going, but the eldest child of this family, I didn't say how old he was, but I did describe him as older. Yes, they're going to try and recruit him. So what? We are not noblemen. Is not our fight. I don't know if this really makes sense here. This is just randomly. This is just a random group of people that they have invited to join them. So hopefully that is conveyed enough by the dialogue. I wasn't just really more using dialogue to describe what they're doing, but we'll see what. I think that makes sense. To me, it makes sense. What the trouble is that quite often you'll write something and it makes complete sense to you, and then someone else will read it, and then they'll be like, "Nah, I have no idea what you mean by that," and so then you have to change the phrasing. But I think that makes sense. Once again, I'm kind of paying attention to chat a little bit. So if you got feedback, I'm all for it. I've taken one class in college on creative writing, and one of my favorite things about that entire class was we We had like group revisions where, you know, we shared our stories. It was like 13 people in this class, something like that. And we like shared stories and we helped, you know, we gave advice what we thought about each other's stories and stuff like that. Obviously, most of us not great writers, fledgling writers, but it was still really fun hearing the perspectives of other people as they read it. So I really value that. That taught me to value that. Also made me love revising with other people, which I used to not really like. But I think it's great to get feedback from someone on your writing. Yeah, that was a really fun experience. If you got the chance, if you get the chance to take a creative writing class in college, it's just fun. I was lucky enough that I didn't need it for anything. But I still was able to take it. So yeah, really fun thing to do. Obviously, you don't need to go to college to be a good writer, but you can learn a lot in classes. Anyways, off that tangent. Well, by the crown, it is all of ours to fight. And now is the time to become a noble man. Yeah, a little bit of play on words there. Obviously, there's a zealot inviting these people to join the fight. I love coffee. Anyways, woman with short brown hair. So actually, this is probably the same person, so I can make this all the same. I don't need a new paragraph here. Woman with short brown hair beneath a steel cap hands them chainmail and swords from the cart. Here, you're big enough. This hand and a half sword will suit you well. This next two lines, I've never done more than sliced potatoes. That's enough. Make sure you follow through. Edge forward, cut the wind and flesh. Onward. It's a good line, but I don't know if I want to keep it. I'm going to type it anyways, but I'm going to put a cross out from it because I think, I don't want to call it fat. I think it's an enjoyable little exchange, but it's not quite exactly what I want in the story. How am I typing the words and then also speaking? I have no idea, by the way. I've always struggled with that. And so all of a sudden I can type random words and speak at the same time. This is a fun little skill here. So the zealots corral the... Oh. I miss those coffee babus so much. Man, alright. Random tangent, but Tanzania has amazing coffee and so good. Also, side note, pro tip, mixing ginger and coffee together. I need to figure out how to make that like they did because it is so good. Ginger and coffee together. It's amazing. All right. So the zealots corral the recruits and the confused civilians shiver into the chainmail as they situate themselves in the middle of the road. Here comes the conflict. The mother directs her children to the side. She puts herself directly between the eldest and the knight's posse. Posse, keeping as much space as they can without diving into the bushes. You are, this would be the mother talking to her son. You are 14 years old, Rama. You understand? Speaking of Tanzania, names of the family are certainly inspired by Swahili names. Family says nothing as they pass the troop. The squire directs the soldiers on how to put on chainmail. pulling the arms and pulling their arms. Pulling the... I would say putting the civilians. Pulling the civilians? I don't know what word I want to use here. Maybe I'll just say pulling their arms and heads through the sleeves and top. We'll keep it simple. I was debating there using civilians or refugees' arms, using that explicit language through the chainmail, but I don't think I have to. Pulling their arms and heads through the sleeves and top. Alright. The night watches, giving pointers on the points of the swords. I love wordplay there. Pointers on the points. It's a bit indulgent to use puns, and sometimes I'll rhyme words as well, but I don't know. I find it fun to do that. Zealot shepherds. And so this, I remember this because it was quite confusing because I'm using shepherd as a verb here, and it reads like a noun, and it's a difficult one. I wonder if this does not have, oh yeah, it did have synonyms. Synonyms: clergyman, reverend, man of the cloth. See, it's all, those are all doing them like as if that's as a noun. But what I want to do is use it as a verb: to tend as a shepherd. Synonyms: couch, counsel, guide. I don't think I've used guide yet. Guides. I quite like that. Guides. Anyone stepping. Where was I? All the way down here. Guides anyone stepping away. Back. Towards. Back into the group. As the family. Yeah. Guys, anyone stepping away to return. Whoop. I think I just pressed the wrong. Don't know why I just pressed, but it was not delete. Await to return to the group as the family. Wonder if anyone can hear someone's revving their engine outside. It sounds great, but it's not great for streaming to have people revving engines outside. As the family. As the family passes the rear guard, the woman speaks. That's right. So hopefully this gives a little bit of like I wanted to kind of pause time here, and kind of make it feel like, you know, kind of feel that tension. You know, they're trying to just sneak right by the troop, and the troop's kind of going about their things, and hopefully this gives a little bit of pause there, and the woman speaks, and is she gonna notice them? Yes, she does, of course. We need this conflict. We need a story. If she didn't notice them, we wouldn't have a story now, would we? Of this lad. So now we also get the name of the knight. I kind of wanted a bit of a contrast between the names of the family and the name of the soldiers. Doesn't really mean anything necessarily in terms of where the origins are, but I wanted to kind of give the sense that they're from two different cultures. You know, one is from a much more richer echelon of society, versus this Rama name. You know, I don't know if it necessarily works, but that's kind of the way I was going. Anyways, what's of this lad? She directs towards the eldest son. Here we go. The knight turns his armor quiet, like it is oiled. He strides over to the boy. son. How old are you? 14, sir. That's quite comical, the voices I'm using, but you get the point. You're large for your age, aren't you? We can all see where this is going. Lift up his visor. Pale blue eyes stare down at Rama, and Rama's dark brown eyes stare at the knight's steel feet. Now we're gonna have the mother pitch in. He's not even started an apprenticeship, sir, the mother says. I'll be honest, I haven't really imagined too much of the society doing this, but I imagine that children do apprenticeships, but I kind of don't even know what that means. Her saying he's not even started an apprenticeship kind of just implies that he hasn't really, started working. He hasn't really started that sort of education. But I don't actually have all that much of an idea of what does an apprenticeship mean in their culture. So we'll see. I don't know. It kind of just something I threw in there. I like it. Like, it means something. But if you actually asked me to define it in vivid detail, I actually wouldn't be able to. That's a little secret there. It's all just between us and the rest of the internet. The knight keeps focused on Rama. Have you ever wielded a sword? He's ignoring the mother. How rude of him. So Rama looks at his mother, then to the knight. Gotta spell knight right. I've not, sir. We farm, well, farmed, potatoes and onions by hand. He shows his hands, dirt trapped in his fingernails. Yeah, this is just a bit of dialogue here, kind of building up this tension, kind of building up the, this tension between the knight and the boy and the family. He's, probably trying a bit to convince the boy to join, but also, he's saying, all right, you're going to join. And obviously he's been told he's 14, but I mean, does he really believe that? He's probably been lied to before. He knows that, people don't want to fight. So he knows that it might be a fib, him being 14. But he also knows that he looks about the right size and he's capable for fighting. I think it would mean that he is young. Most cultures don't send children to be oppressed until they are 10 or 11 years old. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it means. But, like, exactly the context of the apprenticeship, what, like, do you need to go into an apprenticeship? Almost the way I say it implies that you have to go to an apprenticeship, but I guess you don't really have to. I don't know. It's a line that I'm realizing it sounds good, but it's kind of like a move in chess. It might look good, but does it actually hold up to intense examination? I don't know. Yeah. Let's find chainmail in his size. Ooh, that implies that he's definitely going to be suiting up. The mother pleads. He's barely 14. He's just a boy. This is kind of, I mean, obviously this is pretty sad. Not all stories have to be happy, and I wanted this to feel, tragic. Your boy is going to be going into the war, it seems like, and you're going to, that means he's probably going to die. And, so you're going to do a lot to try and not, prevent him from going into war. If the family is poor, they would need to go to work to put less strain on the family. That is quite true. Yeah, I guess the way I implied it is also that he's working for the family in the farms. Oh, now I'm tearing apart the logic of this story now. Because if he's working on the farms, he wouldn't need to do an apprenticeship. It actually kind of adds a bit of layers to it, because, you know, he probably, if he was a farm boy, he probably wouldn't actually go and do an apprenticeship. His mother is almost saying whatever she can to prevent the knight from, you know, recruiting him. This is a case where I really did just throw a sentence in there. The curtains were blue. That's all I meant to say, but apparently it means more. Should ask your English teachers about this. They must be 16. It's a fair point. And he's gonna say exceptions can be made. He will serve nobly. When I first wrote nobly, it just looks weird. It just looks like nobly, but that is, I promise you, nobly is the correct phrasing. It's not nobly. It really is nobly. It goes right to noble. So, anyways, that's a side note. It looks so strange. He will serve nobly. Now he will serve nobly. Exceptions can be made. Where was I? Here it is. How's this, sir? Eleanor. Another, I feel like Eleanor and Percival, they're very regal names. I think that's the right word. It's far easier to use the right words when you're writing because you have the time to look them up in a dictionary than when you're speaking. You know, if she wanted a better life for her son, she could want him to be an apprentice for a profession that has a better life. That is very true. That is very true. I don't think we need to worry about this as much as what we are. But we're apparently worrying about this. I'm not gonna worry about it. I think the line stands. I think it's fine. But it is like, I just realized just thinking about it, like how much it means and doesn't mean. Oh, we've had a follow. That's on the screen. You can see Anthony reminding me to thank the follow, Stoneless B57. That is an interesting name. Stoneless B. I'd be interested to hear what the meaning of that name is. Maybe 57 has the most meaning there, and then Stoneless B means nothing. No, it's fine to go down a rabbit hole. That's this stream is a rabbit hole. I don't know if you watched 2 weeks ago. Me and Eddie we went down a huge rabbit hole. Every single rabbit hole we came across, we went down it. It was fantastic. I loved it. And these are the fun conversations that you get when you write something with people. Is you start, you know, thinking about certain things. Yeah, but I'm gonna try and. Well, we got 7 minutes until 9. I don't have too long to go. I think I can rush to the end so that way you can see the end of this little story here. Certainly, I've got a lot less notes. I don't know. I'm probably going to actually revise this again, do a 5th draft. That 5th draft will more likely, instead of me writing it again, will just be me going through reading it. Very boring. Like, is this correct? Is this correct? But yeah, I'm gonna try and finish this 4th draft. At least this, you know, typing it out, because obviously I've got marks along the way. I'm gonna try and finish this by 9, maybe 9:05. We'll see. Anyways, how's this, sir? Where was this? How's this, sir? Eleanor brings a spear and chain mail shirt over. Sometimes you can tell here I could use A, but I just decided to not use it. You know, I don't know. You don't always have to use A or the. Some languages, in fact, don't even use those at all. But I just sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't. I try and I find that my writing typically, I try and make it as concise as possible. It isn't always concise. I think, as you'll see, some of this writing is not very concise. But like, the knight lifts up his visor, very concise. The following sentence, not concise. I wouldn't consider that concise. The following sentence after, but I try and be at least as tight as possible with my phrasing. Over. The hole in it is only the width of a spear, but it is all Rama can see. Obviously, someone died wearing this. The knight nods. Don't really need that, the knight nods, but I like that detail. I think it adds description. Description is a fickle thing because you can describe a lot, but then you also can describe too much. I really don't know the balance. It really is. It really depends. Sometimes you describe too much, then it takes someone out of it because now their mind isn't doing it, isn't doing enough, and they just, Lord of the Rings, for example, great series, but he describes a lot in heavy detail, and I know some people don't like that. But then also, if you describe too little, you don't even have a story. So it's you got to balance it, and sometimes that's down to style. So mother is crying. I'm talking as if a very sad thing is not happening right now in the story, but obviously it is. He is just a boy. He cannot fight. Hopefully the dialogue, the words that the mother is using, the words that the knight and Eleanor and the boy are using, hopefully those phrasing is different enough that they sound like different people. I'm not very good at that. That's something I'm trying to work on. That's something I've heard a lot of people, using dialogue to make people feel different. And obviously, I haven't, you can hear, it must be 16. I haven't written that she said that, but hopefully by context, you can understand who's saying that that's the mother. And then this is the knight. And then obviously Eleanor entering the conversation. So I felt the need to describe her there, here, right? So you don't always have to say said and says, but I digress. Rama, no. Rama looks at his mother, then to the knight, and then back. Eleanor tries to move his mother away, but she slips from her and then pulls Rama away from the knight, dropping her candle, extinguishing it. Yeah, remember that candle she was carrying? I brought it back. Not sure if that's a good move, but yeah. Something, if you describe something, quite often you want it to come back later. It wraps the story, it keeps it, it makes the story make more sense, I feel like, if you do callbacks, for example. In comedy, obviously, comedians do that all the time, where they do callbacks to something, and, maybe you completely forgot about it, you didn't realize it was coming back, and then they bring it back. You're like, holy shit, that's funny. You mentioned that earlier, and then you used that. I wasn't expecting that. In writing, I think that works really well as well. In the Friday campaign, obviously, the Goliath wasn't just killed Sven and then left. We keep on seeing the Goliath. We keep on seeing various things. Yeah, so as a side note, come on, let him go, lad. Try it on. Now, as I said, people that or things that we mentioned earlier in the story, there are two characters that haven't said a word throughout this entire exchange. The other two smaller children, they're gonna say something. I felt, one, it's kind of a nice interruption. You know, it's a different person speaking. It gives a different context, but then also, you know, it does that callback. It ties things together. Once again, I think it's smart. Is it actually smart? I don't know. It is a bit cliche. Having the youngest child say something, you know, obviously is a bit of a cliche thing, but I'm going to maintain this cliche. The head of his teddy bear. That I felt so sad at that detail that I felt like I had to keep it in. This child, if you didn't catch it, is carrying around the head of his teddy bear. His teddy bear has been disembodied, and that's, you know, he's just carrying around the head. Hamisi, quiet. We'll see there, Rama and Hamisi, and all these wonderful names. He doesn't know them, this browser. And Rama's, yeah, Rama's can own things. Get rid of these red lines. Let me see, quiet. The daughter says as she's dragged by the boy to their mother, bringing all four of them together. His mother wipes mother spelled wrong there. Gibberish. Wipes another tear from her eye. He's back in the city. Hamisi. He's not with this group. Obviously, the youngest child doesn't understand what's going on. And this is quite dramatic, and the mother is kind of protecting her youngest child here. Yeah. Don't know what else to say about this. This last part is generally, I feel like, complete. Reading it through helps me think if it is or isn't complete. I think it's about done. Normally, writing, you know, you just want to keep on revising and revising and revising. You have to know when to stop. I don't always know that. Maybe I think I'm only gonna do another reread, one more, and then I'm just gonna sit at it for, you know, another day. By day, I mean literally 24 hours. Who knows? I have no idea how much time I'll spend on this specific one. But now the mother is using this. She turns, she looks at Percival. I'm gonna call him Sir Percival here. The father was gathered for the militia. He was outside the gates. She nods. When they shut. This is another instance. I don't really know. Like, I don't know what happened in the battle. Obviously, we haven't, in the Friday campaign, we haven't talked too much about this, the fall of the Lost City. I don't even know if there was an instance when the Lost City fell. However, I feel like it makes sense that the gates at some point were shut. It makes sense that there were militia outside. You know, so hopefully this makes sense. But once again, I don't actually have a vision in my head of exactly what happened. I have a general idea, and I'm kind of using that general idea. This is also a short story, so it really doesn't need to be really, really, really in-depth. If this was a novel or even a novella, maybe I would want to have a better idea of it, even if I never write down what actually happened in the battle. If this was a novella or a novel, I would have a much better idea of what happened in the battle. You know, maybe, you know, and these are things that people would remember, and I would have to remember that these people remember what happened in the battle. But I might never describe it because you don't need to describe that. It's kind of more the sense of what happened. So that's a random thing. But yeah, you don't have to describe all the lore in your stories. You'll be needing this. Oh, what does that mean? He picks up the candle, hands it to the mother, bringing the candle back into it again. He turns back to the troop. I'm going to change that wording here. This one is not 16. We must not waste time. Onward. Earlier I had her use onward, and I'm remembering now this is a bit of a callback to that, but once again, sometimes you write something, you think it's great, but it's completely unnecessary. Maybe it'd be great to think of it up in my head of what the battle actually is, but I'm not actually going to do it. So sets the chainmail back into the wagon, and the troop follows Sir Percival to the city. No, the city is lost, right? The mother says as they walk away. The monarch has fled, and the citadel, dramatic ellipsis, I felt it fall moments ago, right? Once again, that detail that we used in the beginning, I'm trying to call back to it. I'm trying to make the story feel all put together. And here we have the knight with the final word, perhaps, but the enemy is still there. So yeah, that is the story. That's the complete of this. I wonder if we want to look right here. I have 1,178 words in this new draft. You can tell that we've shaved a bit off. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. Sometimes you want to add words, sometimes you want to remove words. I kind of enjoy the fact that I've removed words, make it more concise. If I remove this, if I remove this, if I, probably more here. If I change this, then might add or subtract words. But obviously you don't want to worry too much about word count. Whatever it happens to be, you know, you don't need a 2 foot, you don't need a wall of a canvas. You sometimes maybe you only want a foot by foot. The words are just, you know, what works. But yeah. So that is this story. Obviously I have a little bit more to edit. I don't think I'm going to read it through on this stream. I'll figure out what I do next. But yeah, that is all for tonight. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this little experiment for the night. See you later, Serious Whimsy. He's probably already gone. He or she or they are probably already gone. However, but yeah, that's the story. I'm gonna call the night here. And yeah, I'll have to figure out some way to share this complete story with you guys. Maybe if you bother us in the Discord, bother us on Instagram, maybe we'll post snippets of it on Instagram. We've talked various ideas about this. But yeah. So all right, that is it for the night. Hope you guys all have a good one. I hope you enjoyed that. It was a little weird doing this by myself. But yeah. If I need to do it again by myself, I'll do it again. If we get a guest or have my co-host Eddie back, we'll do it like that. Well, we kind of improvise on the Income Well here. So, but anyways, I digress. Hope you all have a good night. Good night.